Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about the rock cycle with help from George, Sarah, and Steve.
Now we will talk about George. George is a granite granular crystalline igneous rock.
In Greek, it means rock from fire. Igneous rocks form when a rock cools from magma. They are either intrusive or extrusive.
You could say George is a rock of fire. He is also very shy, which means he's intrusive.
Forms when magma is trapped near the surface and cools slowly underground.
Next, we will talk about Sarah. Sarah is a conglomerate sedimentary rock.
A rock that has formed through the placement and hardening of the sediments, especially sediment transported by water.
Her family comes from all over the world, so she has a little piece of each person inside her, and this makes up who she is. Now we will talk about Steve. Steve is a very kind rock, which means he is nice. Steve is also a metamorphic rock.
A rock that was once one form of a rock but has changed to another under the influence of heat and pressure.
Steve is also foliated.
That means he is layered from different types of rocks.
The different types of rocks that are inside Steve are quartz, mica, and feldspar. These are also intrusive rocks.
Now we are going to talk about the formative processes of each type of rock. This includes George, the igneous rock, Sarah, the sedimentary rock, and Steve, the metamorphic rock. The first rock we will talk about is George, the igneous rock. George is formed when magma from the earth cools down and becomes a solid rock. This is shown here by a volcano. Now we will talk about Sarah. She is a sedimentary rock. When igneous rocks get lifted up, they go through changes that cause them to break down into smaller pieces. These are called sediments. These pieces form a new type of rock, the sedimentary rock. If a sedimentary rock gets hot enough and has enough pressure on it, it can change its shape and become a metamorphic rock. And if it gets really hot, it can melt down and start the cycle over again.
Let's take a quick look into the rock cycle. George here is a granite rock. He originally was born from cooling magma. He can take many different paths, but just for example, due to forces like water, wind, and others, he can become a whole new rock. This is called weathering. Granite George can now turn into conglomerate Sarah. It doesn't stop here though. Sarah has more rocks she can turn into. Let's take it one final step further. Sarah can take a field trip into the earth and experience lots of heat and pressure. These two combined can turn conglomerate Sarah into a new rock called gneiss.
So now you've learned about George, the igneous rock, Sarah, the sedimentary rock, and Steve, the metamorphic rock. You've also learned about the formative processes, which is how each rock is formed. Lastly, we talked about how each rock can turn into a different rock. I hope you learned something today.